all this thing. We're live.
And we are live. So, Your Worship, it's a planning board meeting. Just want me to move right into it?
Go ahead. Yes, Councilor McPhee, the floor is yours, sir.
I thank you, sir. So planning board meeting, May 11th, the agenda was circulated. We have three things on the three recommendations to deal with. The official plan and rezoning at 678 Water Street East. The official plan and rezoning at 9 South Drive. And a street naming recommendation for a private street off Pope Road that McCormick Builders and Apartments are undertaking. So, anything else to add to the planning board agenda?
Nothing here.
And for the record, we have all of the planning board here, Councilors Adam and Ramsey and Your Worship and myself, and we as well, we have Councillor McDougall, Councillor McColeman, and Councillor Snow. And we have regrets from Councillor Durand and Councillor Campbell. In council chambers,
That's
we
objective
have Brian Hurlett here. We have Nathan Kember with us. You can see Nathan won't have to jump around this time. Nathan is sitting where people normally present, and if we have any questions, he can deal with those. And Linda Stevenson is here, and I'm not sure who all we have. We have Aaron and McDonald and Gordon McFarland upstairs on their computers. So we're socially distanced, and we're set to begin. So I'll move right into it. So the first recommendation is 678 Water Street East, official planning zoning amendment. The supporting explanation, purpose. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow an apartment building. The applicant is proposing a 59-unit apartment building with underground parking. Apartment building means a building containing more than 2 dwelling units except a row house or townhouse as defined in this bylaw. The background, an application was received from Strategic Holdings, Inc., Nathan Kember, for portion of PID number 72421, portion A, to amend the official plan from commercial land use to residential land use, and city zoning bylaw from service commercial C2 zone to high density residential R4 zone. Portion B, to amend the city zoning bylaw from single family residential R1 zone to high density residential R4 zone. A public meeting was held on May 6, 2020, and council gave first reading on the same date. Report under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw. When planning board reviews the zoning bylaw amendment, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. And there's several of them. A, conformity with all requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment. If council approves the zoning map amendments, portion A from C2 to R4 and portion B from R1 to R4, the applicant will be permitted to construct an apartment building subject to R4 development standards. B, conformity of the official plan. Staff comment. The rezoning conforms with the official plan, section 5.1.1, residential zones. The objective listed in that section is to promote all housing types in the city. The policy statements, the following are council's policy to promote a sufficient diversity of housing types, residential densities, and 10-year options to meet varied segments of the market demand. And 2, require that all housing be connected to community water and sewer services, except that where it is impractical to make connections in an agricultural zone. On-site servicing may be utilized in compliance with the minimum lot size requirements under the PI Planning Act regulations. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment, this site is suitable for high density residential land use. A public street and municipal services are available for this development. D, compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment, portion A, and the maps there for us to refer to. The properties to the west and east are zone service commercial C2. The properties to the north is zone institutional, and the vacant property to the south is zoned R1. Portion B, the properties to the north are a mix of C2 and R1. Properties to the west are mixed of C2 and R1, and the properties to the east and south are R1. E, any comments from residents or other interested persons? Staff comment, a public meeting was held on May 6, 2020. The public meeting notice was advertised in the April 23rd edition of the Guardian. 10 letters were mailed to 10 property owners. Nathan Kember provided an explanation of his development and provided preliminary drawings of the proposed building. Hans Warner, I believe it is, 704 Water Street East, had a question about future apartment buildings on the site in addition to the one he is proposing. Ken Hickey sent written comments indicating he supported the application. Kent Painter, 682 Water Street East, Washerville, was not opposed but expressed his concerns in written comments. Mike Martin and Julie Hall, 705 Water Street East, also submitted written comments in regards to the wetlands and marsh area on Mr. Kember's property. Mr. Kember provided clarity and explanation for a majority of the concerns raised at the meeting. Concerns also are also addressed through this report. The written comments were read at the public meeting and are attached to this report. I don't think there's any need, they've been read into the public record. I don't think there's any need to read them again unless the planning board wishes me to read them again.
I don't feel we have to, but it's up to the rest of the council.
We're good. There was one additional letter received after the deadline of Thursday that wasn't expressing any concern with the development per se. I don't think it came after the deadline for input. Was asking questions about the environmental piece, which are covered off in this report. So I think that adequately describes that. F, adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services. City parking and parklands for accommodating the development and any project infrastructure requirements. Staff comment. Water Street has a 250 millimeter distribution main on the north side of Water Street that can handle the water requirements for this change in zoning. Rezoning this development from C2 to R4 increases the load on the Houston Street lift station by less than 1% of the calculated future loading for the entire drainage basin. The city does not see this as a significant load change. Therefore, there is no expectation of the developer contributing to an upgrading of the new lift station. The city's sewer main infrastructure for this development is a gravity trunk main that is to the north of the proposed development. Connection of this development into this system is to be at a manhole, or a manhole will have to be installed as part of this development. The developer will have to ensure there is enough grade for the gravity sewer, or the developer will have to pump the sewage into the system. There is a 3-phase electrical service available for the 54 unit proposed at 678 Water Street. G, impact from the development on pedestrian and vehicular access and safety, and on public safety generally. Staff comment, proposed accesses are not directly on Water Street East. The additional traffic as a result of this development would have minimal effect on the traffic on Water Street East. There is a sidewalk located on the south side of Water Street East that runs along the front of this development. H, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment. City staff are aware of potential environmental concerns as a portion of this land is zoned conservation, CO. The applicant will require approval from the PEI Department of Environment prior to the city issuing a building permit. I, impact on city finances and budgets. Staff comment, not applicable. J, other matters as specified in this bylaw. Not applicable. K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, the plans presented by Mr. Kember at the public meeting were intended for the purpose of this rezoning application. City staff have not reviewed the preliminary plans in regard of the specifics of this development. Recommendation, technical services staff recommend that the application from Strategic Holding Inc., Nathan Kember, for portion of PID number 72421, portion A, to amend the official plan from commercial land use to residential land use, and city zoning bylaw from service commercial C2 zone to high density residential R4 zone, portion B, to amend the city zoning bylaw from single family residential R1 zone to high density residential R4 zone, be recommended to be approved by council. As per section 5.10, subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought to council or before it to council for a final decision. So the planning board recommendation, this application bears the recommendation of the planning board. We will welcome a mover and a seconder from planning board, and then we will open the floor to council for discussion. We have a mover and a second, moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Ramsey. So the floor is open for discussion, and as is our normal practice, we have no members of the public here. We have the proponent here, Mr. Kember, and we would ask that it's usually not an opportunity for comment. It's really a response to questions, and we're looking for new information that wasn't already discussed at the public meeting. So with that, we would open the floor. Is there any discussion, any questions from council? Not seeing any, not hearing any. If not, we will call the question. So all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. So this recommendation will go to council on, was it Tuesday the 19th? For final approval. So that concludes the first item on the agenda. No questions, Mr. Tender. So that's a positive thing.
Yes. Thank you.
Just to add to that, Councillor McFeely, yes, it will be the final approval by council, but there is a 21-day appeal period.
Yeah.
For Mr. Kember.
And council's decision could be appealed to IRAC if somebody saw that that's the route they want to go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
guys.
much for attending. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you, Nathan.
Have a good day.
Oh.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You.
See you later.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Okay, our second item on the agenda. We read the same stuff all over again almost for 9 South Drive, official planning zoning amendment. Supporting explanation. Purpose. The purpose of the official plan zoning amendment is to allow a semi-detached dwelling. Semi-detached means a building that is divided vertically into 2 side-by-side dwelling units. Both units are constructed directly on grade and separated from each other by a vertical wall of concrete or masonry firewall. Semi-detached dwellings require individual public utilities and street frontage for each dwelling unit and can be subdivided as per section 8.15. Background. An application was received from Leroy Gamble and Karen Churchill Gamble For PID number 67751, to amend the official plan from commercial land use to residential land use and to amend the zoning bylaw zoning from service commercial C2 zone to low density mixed residential R2 zone. A public meeting was held on May 6, 2020, and council gave first reading on the same date. The report. Under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw, when planning board reviews a zoning bylaw amendment, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. A, conformity with all requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment. If council approves the zoning map amendments from C2 to R2, the applicant will be permitted to construct a semi-detached dwelling subject to the development standards of the proposed R2 zone. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment, the rezoning conforms to the official plan, section 5.1.1, residential zones. The objective of that area is to promote all housing types in the city, and our policy statements in that regard are to promote a sufficient diversity of housing types, residential densities, and tenure options to meet the varied segments of the market demand. And 2, require that all housing be connected to community water and sewer service, except that where it is impractical to make connection in an agricultural zone. On-site servicing may be utilized in compliance with minimum lot size requirements under the PI Planning Act regulations. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment, this site is suitable for low-density residential land use. A public street, South Drive, and municipal services are available for this development. D, compatibility of the proposed development with the surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment, the property to the south are zoned R3, the property to the north and the property to the east are zoned C2, although a single family dwelling occupy these properties. The property to the west is zoned R5, West Drive Trailer Park. Property to the east is zoned C2, although a single family dwelling occupies this lot. There is a number of properties in this area that are zoned C2, as this was the commercial area and the hub of the former community of St. Elmers. There are institutional properties in the area as well, and the map indicates where the proposed property would go. Item number 1 there. E, any comments from residents or other interested persons? Staff comment. The public meeting was held on May 6, 2020. The public meeting notice was advertised in the April 23rd edition of The Guardian. 22 letters were mailed to 19 property owners. The applicant spoke at the meeting and provided clarity to some of the questions asked by the public. The question concerns raised are addressed in this report. F, adequacy of the water, existing water, sewer, roads, stormwater, and electrical services. City parking and parkland for accommodating the development and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment, South Drive has a 250 millimeter distribution main on the west side of South Drive and has a 200 millimeter gravity collection sewer main on the east side of South Drive. The city's water supply and sewer treatment system can handle the additional loading created by the change in zoning. Access to South Drive is achievable. A site drainage plan will be required. The property owner will be required to provide individual services to each side of the semi-detached unit at the property owner's expense. The electrical service in the area are able to accommodate this rezoning. G, impacts from the development on pedestrian, vehicular access and safety and on public safety generally. Staff comment, the development will have access to South Drive. The development will meet the minimum setbacks for vehicular access from the nearest intersection of South Drive and West Drive. The additional traffic as a result of this development would have minimal effect on South Drive. There is a sidewalk located on the east side of South Drive. H, compatibility of the development with the environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, there are no environmental, scenic, or heritage resources to consider for this development. I, impact on city finances and budget. Staff comment, not applicable. J, other matters as specified in this bylaw, nothing there. K, other matters as considered relevant. And there's nothing there. Recommendation, technical services staff recommend the application from Leroy Gamble and Karen Churchill Gamble for PID number 67751 to amend the official plan from commercial land use to residential land use and to amend zoning bylaw zoning map from service commercial C2 to low density mixed residential R2 zone be recommended to be approved by council. As per section 5.10, subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision. So the planning board recommendation, this application bears the recommendation of the planning board, and once again would call for a mover and a seconder for that motion. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Councillor Adams. And we will open the floor to any questions or discussion. Councillor McDougall.
Yes, Councillor McFeely. This is a question for Aaron, probably. The sewer is on the east side of that South Drive, and I'm just wondering, can they drill for that across the road, or does that have to be dug up? Aaron there?
Yeah, I can hear you there now. Sorry, I heard you all along. Yes, typically they dig at the street at the main location and try and auger a service across so they don't have to dig it all the way across the street. That's typically what's done, and they'll try and make a couple of attempts at it. The last resort is to dig all the way across the street.
Okay, thank you. My other question was on the map, probably a question for Linda. On the map, I think it's 67, I don't know, it ends with 51, the lot number. The information we got here is it's sort of rectangular, but there was a little piece on it the other day when we were talking about it. Is that included, or a small piece to the south? It doesn't, on the map that we're talking about today, it doesn't seem to have that drawn in, but I thought it was on there the other day.
You're correct, Bruce. It was in the initial one. But currently it, basically that little piece was zoned R3, and it's just a zoning, basically a zoning boundary adjustment that should have been made. Wasn't made at the time. So the first map when we showed it, and I appreciate we were working remotely from home, so we were trying to snapshot things out and not have the same.
That's already been zoned.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
that was my question. Thank you very much. Fully supported. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, folks? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Motion carried. So that will go to council on Tuesday, May 19th.
Housing, Councillor.
We're doing good, yeah.
One more.
Find the information here for the next item. The final item on planning board is street name, a private street. Recommendation, supporting explanation. Purpose, to name a private street off Pope Road. Background, the private street owner developer McCormick Buildings and Apartment Limited wish to propose a name that is not on the approved street name list. The proposed name for the private street is David James. The street suffix will be street. The proposed name is consistent with two other private street names they currently own, John Angus and Rita Mary off Duke Street. The name David James is the first and middle name of the property owner developer, David McCormick. And you can see from the map, the layout of the proposed development and the street that is being proposed. Report, as required under the Emergency 911 Act, city is a designated municipality and is responsible to assign civic addresses. A private road must be named if it provides access to 3 or more improved properties. As per Schedule B, street naming policy of the site development and subdivision, any person who wishes to use a name that is not on the approved street name list shall make application to council, and council shall approve or deny by simple resolution. The proposed street name, David James, is being forwarded to the planning board for their review and recommendation. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision. In the planning board recommendation, this application bears the recommendation of the planning board, and once again, we would call for a mover and a seconder.
Just a couple of comments there, Councillor McFeely.
Can we get the motion on the floor, Your Worship?
Yeah, sorry, that was.
Yeah, no problem. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, second by Councillor Adams. So motion is now on the floor, Your Worship, and the floor is open.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. We certainly want to commend David McCormick for his development, not only for this one, but for many over the last number of years. They're one of a few residential developers in Summerside, and they do great work. No question about that. And I could personally get no problem with the name. I think it's got a nice ring to it. Having said that, will the street eventually be turned over to the city, or will it be kept by the developer? And I was wondering if it would be lighted, and does it meet, I guess in order to turn it over to the city, you'd have to meet city standards. So I'm just wondering a couple of those things.
Linda or Aaron, could
The developer is choosing to build a private street to their own standard. It will not be turned over to the city in the future. Even though it's a private street, we need to name it. That's why we're here. But yes, we will not be taking it over. It's built to their own standard for them to maintain in the future.
Fine, thank you.
So this will not be a public street, remains a private street. Am I correct?
Correct.
So just to sum up there, Councillor McFeely, the police department and the fire department and EMO or whomever will be notified of the name for case of 911 calls or whatever.
Just
We will have to, we still have to clarify this name and verify it through 911 to see if it's make sure it doesn't conflict with any other of the abutting municipalities. So I'm just waiting to hear back from those folks on that. And if so, we'll forward it as well onto the fire chief and police chief. And normally it comes into effect when we place the sign or when the units are going to be start construction.
Go to the ambulance people as well. That's great. Thanks very much.
I get Councillor McDougall.
Yeah, just a question. Is this, I know that they're not turning the street over to the city. Is it built to city specifications though?
Aaron?
No, they build it to their own standards and their own width, we do ensure that fire or emergency vehicle can turn around on it, but as far as the actual width and thickness and stuff is up to the individual developer.
Right. And is this consistent with their other developments?
Yes, and they're, besides themselves, other people have done the same. They've either chose not to go to if they do not build it to a city standard, it remains a private one of theirs and will never be taken over by the city.
Okay, thank you.
Basically a private driveway with a name on it.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I guess the point I just wanted to kind of make was that there was a committee that spent many hours reviewing potential names for city streets. And that was brought to council a year ago now, probably, with that list of, I think there was 40 some names on it. So I just really just want to make a statement that this really doesn't undermine the work of that group and the hours that they spent doing that work, because it's kind of a privately owned. I think the mayor phrased it appropriately when he said it's really just a driveway with a name on it. So it's not like it's a public street. So for those people who were part of that process of many hours reviewing names of potential names for streets based on a number of criteria, I hope you don't see this as sort of undermining that work, because it's certainly not meant to do that. So, Councillor Ramsey.
Okay. I just want to take a second. I just want to congratulate David on that project. And I also really like the name. It coincides with the other streets in that area. And I think it all kind of blends in nicely. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments before we call the question? If not, we'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moved by whom, sorry?
It's moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Councillor Adams.
Favor?
All those in favor say aye. Contrary? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you, folks. And that concludes the agenda for Planning Board today.
Councillor McFeely, I just wanted to note, not that this is necessarily needed for the record, but Councillor Duran was not able to attend virtually, but he has been following this at the meeting online. He just wanted to let everyone know that he was in support of all three of the recommendations that have been made by Planning Board. He just wanted that noted for the record.
And we'll let the record show that. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Councillor Duran.